Welcome all. This is Alpha Leak 5 we're on to now, and we're going to be talking through Synthetix in terms of Infinex. If this is your first time jumping in, we're trying to accelerate the extinction of centralized exchanges, basically bringing you what looks like a centralized exchange experience, except remaining self-custodial. In terms of our Alpha Leak this week, this is a little bit of a sneak peek of the designers have been working on a new way of displaying tokens. So I know a lot of people have been waiting for charts. You can see that here. It's actually got the chain displays down the bottom. So a little bit more chain agnostic in the way that you can look at your token holdings. And then you're also going to see your activity tucked in away here. And you can still expect mobile charts as well, except this is just what the desktop experience might look like. It is obviously a leak, so subject to changes. Now, we're on to Synthetix. So for those that don't know, Ben is the strategy seat, and there's a big change at the moment coming on with the 420 pool, for those that don't know. And the whole aim is to sort of make staking great again. So I'm going to pass over to Ben. You can give us a quick overview of what does that actually mean? How's staking changing?
Yeah, awesome. So to provide a bit of context, Synthetix was kind of the founder of liquidity mining for DeFi back in 2020, for those that were around. And throughout 2020, 2021, even 2022, staking SNX was a very attractive value proposition. There was a lot of reason to do it. There was a lot of incentive to do it. And we were able to actually maintain industry high staking rates of upwards of 80% of all SNX staked, which was a great outcome for the protocol. Over the last couple of years, the value proposition to staking SNX has kind of diminished. And in discussions late last year and early this year, particularly with Kane, who sits on the advisory board at Synthetix and the Spartan Council, is that we really wanted to create a mechanism whereby staking became a core value proposition of the ecosystem once again. And so that's kind of where we landed on this idea of the 420 pool, whereby at its core, it makes staking simple for the user again. So the user ends up just turning up, depositing their SNX, instead of having to worry about this system whereby they mint debt and they're worried about managing that debt ratio relative to the value of the collateral, and they're at risk of liquidation. And we know from experience, if you give crypto natives free money, odds that they manage that prudently tend to be quite low. And so what we found was we had to maintain quite a high collateralization ratio. And so what we're doing is, by wrapping all of that up and just creating a simple deposit your SNX here button, which is into the 420 pool, we're kind of moving a lot of that functionality over to the protocol. And if you allow the protocol to mint, you get multiple benefits, one of which is you can be a lot more capital efficient. So instead of having to manage a very conservative C ratio like 500%, which in effect, for those that aren't aware with the system, effectively means that you can borrow 20% of the value of the SNX that you contribute. By allowing the protocol to mint SUSD, what we allow is we can enable that C ratio to fall drastically. And so what we've proposed is we can mint down to a 200% C ratio, which is effectively 50% the value of the collateral. And so instead of having $20 of SUSD per $100 of SNX, we have $50 of SUD per $100 of SNX. And then off the back of being able to mint all of that and manage that within the protocol, what we're proposing to do is go out and yield with that. And initially at launch, we're partnering with Athena to be a minter of USDE, or specifically SUSDE, and earn the yield that Athena generates via the mechanisms that they have in place to capture the basis trade, the Bitcoin and Ethereum basis trades. And so
I guess for a uneducated, a bit like myself, I guess. Previously, I remember I personally told over trying to understand Synthetix staking a while ago, probably mid last year, and I was literally looking at it for probably over a week in a lot of detail, and then I got overwhelmed because I couldn't calculate where the risks were enough, and ended up holding spot tokens, which I think a lot of people end up doing. But I guess what you're saying is if you're holding Synthetix, you can now stake it without having to worry about hedging, calculating your risk, and then you're going to have some sort of exposure to DeFi yields, starting with Athena.
Exactly. So that's it. Removing the complexity of managing SUSD positions and a fluctuating debt position, and just turning into a simple staking module whereby users turn up, stake their SNX, and then on the back end, the protocol goes out and generates yield with that collateral that they can mint against the SNX.
And then in terms of what it actually looks like, I've got the UI here. So anyone that's got Synthetix, they can jump over to the new 420 deposit page and stake into this 420 pool.
Yeah, so once a user turns up, the kind of phase one of this launch will be for users, primarily targeted at users who have existing debt. And so what the hope is that by entering the pool, they transfer their debt to the protocol, and over a 12-month period, the protocol will actually absorb that debt on their behalf. And so users effectively, we recognize that managing debt and having this experience whereby a lot of users got huge debt inflation because of some of the mechanisms that's at within Synthetix. So we're just kind of absorbing all of that historical pain for a lot of our stakers and saying, look, if you contribute to the 420 pool and allow the protocol to perform some I guess, or allow the protocol to manage the SUSD and allocate that as per ways that benefit the protocol as a whole, as opposed to just allowing the user, mostly a lot just sat on SUSD or exited SUSD and left the system. If we can deploy that across the system, that becomes a huge value proposition for Synthetix. So if you do that, we'll absorb your debt over a 12-month period. For stakers that don't have debt, like you mentioned yourself, there is a phase two coming, which will hopefully kind of create a mechanism that isn't incentivized with a debt burn because you don't have debt, but is incentivized with some kind of treasury incentive.
Awesome. I think that, and if anyone has any questions, happy that we've got one big question saying when's this coming. So I guess when can people expect to be able to burn their debt?
Yeah, so tomorrow we're going live. We're in a pre-commit period at the minute where we're doing some final testing and getting some early contributions to make sure that everything's performing as expected. And then we will announce an official go live tomorrow, and in via our social media channels and via Discord, we will share access to the 420 pool.
Awesome. I think that sort of wraps up our section on Synthetix. So thanks so much for talking us through. Excited for, I think I do have a position somewhere that's in debt that I'm been scared to repay. So I'll definitely be migrating some of it over there. For the next section, we've got our trench report. Happy for you to stay on, Ben, for the commentary. But I think the most exciting thing that's happened in the last week is Trump scamming us all with this crypto reserve announcement. I was pretty surprised when this seemed to come out of nowhere, especially the mention of XRP and Cardano. I think my sort of take on it is that they did some polling of his holder base and they worked out that that's the tokens that his voter base held the most. And so that's the ones that they decided to include in the reserve. I don't know what insider trading was going on when he announced Bitcoin and ETH after the fact. Have you got any thoughts, Ben?
I mean, it's insane. It took him an hour after announcing the crypto reserve to include Bitcoin and ETH and start with XRP, Solana, and Cardano. I mean, no comments as to the methodology on that, but
I saw on CoinGecko there's an American crypto section, and all the coins that are in the American crypto section were going crazy. I know I saw
that flower chart of American crypto coins and World Liberty Fi coins and Coinbase 50 coins and Grayscale coins and what all overlaps. People trying to map what ends up in the strategic reserve via it.
Yeah, the person I saw leaning into it the most, which I thought was a really good play, was And I actually think it's interesting for a strategy point of view is Movement Labs, Arushi, who I was pretty bearish on it because I thought like, why would you want a move VM chain on top of ETH? Except he definitely seems to be playing the like strategic biz dev game pretty well. Of like he has photos with politicians and has called himself Fed on Twitter, and Movement pumped like crazy on that announcement. And it's one of the coins that like the World Liberty Finance holds. And it seems crazy that you could play that just like almost political game, but it's definitely, he's basically openly said that his main BD and go to market is going to be like trying to be a Fed and getting in with the politicians.
Yeah, it's funny. I forget who said it. It might have been Naval, but he was like, if your cryptocurrency has a lobbying group, you're not decentralized. I'm sorry.
I wanted to bring up the Bitcoin chart here. I hope everyone can see the cursor as well. It was like pretty much around here that Trump drops that tweet. It just like shoots up for a day, and then we're a little bit above, except we're like pretty much round tripped on the hype from that. The next update we had was, and I feel like this is a bit of like the last of the meme coin extraction of, a lot of people know this scene. I'm not going to say it out loud, but we had Mario Nafal launching a coin with this, I believe, Nigerian news anchor guy. And I think this is going to be like the last scraps of people thinking that they can just like launch meme coins and dump on retail. But hopefully that means that we see a bit of a trend reversal to more things with revenue or things that might be doing buybacks, which would be, I think good for us long term. And then the last thing I saw, which this was almost most interesting to me, because Vitalik talked a lot about how presidential coins could be dangerous because they become a really easy way for like foreign entities to bribe politicians, basically. And yeah, Justin Sun bought $75 million worth of Trump coin and then had his like case halted by the SEC, which is pretty insane. And I'm like, I don't know how you feel, Ben, but I would never have thought that I would be in a situation where I actually wish that there was like a little bit of pressure from the SEC. It feels like gloves are off and crime is completely legal. And it's almost it's almost like I wish there was like a fear of something going wrong if you're doing completely blatant things like this. But it seems like it's completely out the window. I guess, what are your thoughts on the regulatory environment at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're just doing a regulatory reset. I think a lot of people are kind of looking at this going, hey, the regulatory landscape has definitely opened up. But I do think that what we'll likely see is, like, we went too far one way. I think if we go the other way, what will end up happening is like they'll reset the SEC agenda and they'll land somewhere in the middle, whereby it's not chasing the Coinbases, it's not chasing the Geminis and the Krakens. It's really chasing the bad actors in the space. But I think at the minute, it's probably just that bit of a reset where they're just saying, hey, step back for a minute, let's reassess the landscape, and then kind of come at it with a fresh perspective. That's my hope, at least.
Yeah, the craziest moment for me, I remember, was there's like the SEC was going after Uniswap. I'm not sure if they still are. I'm guessing they've dropped it. But then there's another project called Unicoin, which has a unicorn logo as well. And it's like registered with the SEC through some loophole. And I just remember, like, there's a Unicoin yacht on Sydney Harbour that I've seen, and they would have paid some crazy amount of money for it to be running the Sydney to Hobart. And for those that don't know, that's a yacht race from Sydney to Hobart. It's a really famous yacht race in Australia. And they sponsored it some crazy amount of money. And I saw it in like the preparation, and they definitely just lied and took all the cash, because like the boat that has the logo painted on the side, there's no way it would have made it to Hobart. And it was actually at the marina that I was like helping out with at the time, and there was just like no sign of ever anyone being on this boat, and it was like pretty much dead, almost sinking, except just had this Unicoin logo slapped on the side that they'd sponsored it for hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars. And I was like, damn, these guys blatantly laundering money are fine through the SEC, but then they're going after Uniswap. It's pretty crazy. For the next part, we're just highlighting some community content. So In terms of the top yappers this week, similarly, we got Simplicity up there. Kane's stormed ahead as well. He's been much more active this week. And then Ethboi, a lot of you will see him posting around. I like to see Mockabite on here too. We are planning like sort of revitalized rewards for the community engagement on Kaito, so stay tuned for that. We will have updates pretty soon, but it's not for nothing, and people that are yapping about us will get some sort of reward. I think, and this is probably one of the reasons that Mockabite was so high up there. He made this great image. I thought it was very confused that he pulled my real face here with the wizard hat, but putting all of the Infinex team onto the different Avengers, I liked a lot. And then he did a thread summary of the different people in here. I also want to call out Dune, who a lot of you would have seen posting more recently, but he is one of the front-end engineers, and he's been posting some like fake UI screenshots and things like that. So definitely give him a follow. He's this like bare picture. On community updates as well, you can expect pretty soon, I'm going to be revamping the Discord. This is another little like alpha leak. If you're an artist or you're exercising a lot, or if you're working on projects you're building in your spare time, I'm basically going to offer new rewards and roles for pursuing any kind of, I want to go for like a Renaissance man type of rewards, or Renaissance person, I should say. If you're pursuing art, like creativity, building something, or physical fitness, then you're going to be rewarded regardless of the category. That should be out in the next, hopefully, week or so. So stay tuned for that as well. Now, Ben, we're on to our quiz. I'm going to share the quiz on my screen in a second. So everyone scan this code and feel free to join. Feels like a scary time in the markets. I'm really like, I feel just so unsure. I'm like, I don't know enough about macro, and I'm so scared about the tariffs, like trade war that seems to be happening. And I'm like, but then at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, it can't get like, I feel like everyone says like markets are like forward looking, and it's like, how much worse can it really get than like people trying to price in a trade war? But then I feel like me saying surely it can't go lower is just like the stereotypical top signal as well.
Yeah, I mean, these tariffs are really wreaking havoc, but I think at least for the minute, it seems to be all eyes on March 7 and see what happens at this crypto summit in the White House, at least for our industry in the short term.
I think I saw I can't believe I'm actually saying this, but I saw a tweet, and it was like specific astrological dates for trading around. I actually meant to put this in the presentation, but I actually slipped up. But everyone, this is super secret alpha. On the 14th, it's apparently a blood moon, and that's also the next like federal open market committee meeting. And so people are saying that this blood moon coinciding with a Fed announcement is going to be very bullish, except then there's some pretty bearish dates later on in the midterm, but maybe I'll save them for the next alpha league. But yeah, I'm definitely, the 7th, I don't know what's going to happen. It'll be interesting to see. Okay, I'm going to start off the quiz. We got 45 in here. This was the artwork I showed off I think this is a pretty niche one. I'll be impressed people who can get this, but if you've been paying attention on Twitter, then it should be easy.
I think it was a good color blend.
Yeah, it was. I was glad that I was put as Thor because he's probably my second favorite Avenger. I obviously love Iron Man, except Thor's a close second.
The Aussies.
I've seen people posting about trying to collect all the bull run cards, so I'm sure there's a couple of people that are going to get this.
Mm-hmm.
The last quiz I included a question in Chinese specifically to call out to the Chinese community, and then I gave everyone that got it right a special Discord role. And I couldn't think of like a good role to name it, so I made it like the Chinese characters for a Discord role. And I was like, I hope this joke lands. Except they all seem to like it in the Discord. In the Discord yesterday. This should be easy. If anyone gets this wrong, I'll be pretty upset.
Very upset. Gotta be.
I'm sad that some people got that wrong. The non-answerers there are really digging their own grave.
Just giving away points.
I had to make some easy.
This was a good one. There was a bit of a takeover.
Yeah, we've had a takeover on our X. There's a new person posting. I'm not sure if it's that obvious. Damn, lots of people got it right. I'm surprised by that.
I think he said, or he retweeted it very quickly after.
Okay, that's the giveaway
announcement. Yeah.
Yeah, I opened a can. I guess I just gave away that it wasn't a bull run pack for those that are listening. I don't know how many people were watching the intro set, so we'll see.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Congrats, guys. Apollo on the top. 420 SNX. Damn, good job. I hope that was you, Ben. We've had a few times of our guests doing really well.
That was me.
Damn. I think that's the second time we've had the guest as the winner. I swear that they don't have early access to the questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, any closing thoughts before we wrap things up?
No, I mean, it's as you mentioned, it's a crazy time in markets, but I think there's for Synthetix, on our side, we're pushing along. We're hoping that this kind of meme cycle is somewhat cooling off, and there is a return to DeFi assets that actually do some cool stuff in the ecosystem. We're pushing hard. 420 is an exciting step for Synthetix, which kind of fixes the core of our protocol, which is staking. And I think watch out, we've got some pretty cool announcements coming over the next couple of months in terms of product upgrades and where to from here. So we're excited. Maybe a session again in another couple of months.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks
Awesome.
so much, guys. Thanks for listening. And I was a bit delayed with getting some of the previous episode uploads, but if you missed the previous episodes, we've actually got a YouTube channel. So Infinex_app, same as Twitter. I'm going to be uploading this episode and all the previous ones there. The previous two are up, and then Unichain is about to go up later today. And then this Synthetix episode will be up later today as well. So if you miss anything, make sure you catch up on those there, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.
See you all.